The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. 100 voices overlapped in a frenzy of disbelief, outrage, and, most notably, fear. Representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy, beings who had ruled the stars for millennia, now sat in silent horror as they replayed the intercepted footage. The screen flickered, displaying grainy battlefield recordings. At first, it seemed like any other war, alien forces clashing in the vacuum of space, ships breaking apart in bursts of flame. But then the feed zoomed in on the ground forces. A single squad of humans, their armor dented and scorched, stood surrounded by enemies at least twice their size. The opposing warriors, bioengineered for combat, had been expected to tear through them like paper. Instead, the humans fought like cornered beasts, relentless, brutal, refusing to surrender even when wounded. One of them, a soldier missing an arm, had picked up a weapon with his remaining hand and continued fighting until he collapsed from blood loss. Silence hung heavy in the chamber as the footage ended. Then, a voice finally spoke, trembling with disbelief. This is not normal. No species should endure this much damage and still keep fighting. We were told humans were adaptable, but this... A pale-skinned representative from the Zevruk Dominion leaned forward, his throat ridges pulsating with unease. They are Deathworlders. It's the only explanation. Their homeworld breeds monsters. A murmur spread across the chamber. The term Deathworlder was not used lightly. Planets that earned that classification were considered too hostile for civilized life, places of extreme weather, vicious predators, and lethal conditions. Species that evolved on such worlds were anomalies, outliers in the grand design of the galaxy. Dangerous. Unpredictable. Uncontrollable. Perhaps we underestimated them, another council member admitted. The Zelvari delegate, whose species had prided itself on superior biological strength, sneered. Underestimated? They are a threat. They have been moving through the galaxy unnoticed, hiding behind diplomacy and trade. But what happens when they decide they no longer want to cooperate? What happens when these warriors turn their gaze upon us? Across the room, a single figure sat motionless, watching the debate unfold. High Chancellor Varen, leader of the Galactic Council, had seen many conflicts in his long years, but this was different. The Council was afraid. Genuinely afraid. And for the first time in centuries, they had no clear solution. A deep breath. Then, his voice rang out. We cannot let fear cloud our judgment. If humans are Deathworlders, we must confirm it beyond speculation. Another delegate scoffed. And how do you propose we do that? Ask them? Varen's expression darkened. No. We observe them. We study their history, their wars, their survival instincts. And if the evidence proves they are truly a species that cannot be reasoned with, then we must decide what must be done before it's too late. The room fell into heavy silence once more. Outside, in the vast reaches of space, humanity continued to expand, unaware that the eyes of the entire galaxy had now turned toward them. The silence in the Galactic Council chamber stretched on, heavy with unspoken fears. Every species present had encountered war, had seen empires rise and fall, but this was something else. Humanity was different. They weren't the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced. And yet, they survived, again and again, against impossible odds. A representative from the Vorten Dominion, a species known for their strategic brilliance, finally broke the silence. His 3 glowing eyes narrowed as he considered the situation. If we observe them, we must be careful. If they truly are Deathworlders, they may already suspect we are watching. If they uncover our intentions, we could be seen as a threat. Perhaps they already do, murmured a delegate from the Crixer Alliance, his voice barely above a whisper. Think about it. They've been expanding rapidly, but not aggressively. They've built alliances, shared technology. They present themselves as diplomatic, eager to cooperate, but isn't that the best strategy for a species hiding its true nature? A shudder rippled through the council. If humanity had truly been playing a long game, waiting for the right moment to reveal their strength, then the galaxy had been dangerously blind. Varen tapped his fingers against the polished surface of the council table, his mind racing. He had always viewed humans as unpredictable but fascinating, a species that defied logic at every turn. But now? Now, he wasn't sure what to believe. "Before we act, we need more than speculation," he said finally. "Send reconnaissance teams. Study their history, their physiology, their psychology. Find out what makes them, them. If they are Deathworlders, if their survival instincts pose a threat to galactic stability, we must know before it's too late." Across the chamber, encrypted messages were already being sent to intelligence divisions. Agents would be deployed, records would be analyzed, and soon, the truth would be uncovered. But what the Council didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that humanity had already noticed the shift. On a distant human-controlled colony, deep within the outer systems, a research station was buzzing with quiet tension. Lieutenant Commander Elias Carter stood at the edge of a holographic display, arms crossed, studying the intercepted transmissions with narrowed eyes. "We've been getting more surveillance sweeps near our borders," said a technician beside him, shifting uncomfortably. "Stealth probes. Cloaked observation ships. They think we don't see them, but, well, they aren't as subtle as they think." Elias exhaled slowly, shaking his head. "They're afraid of us." "Should they be?" The question came from Dr. Lillian Hayes, a civilian scientist specializing in xenobiology. She had always been fascinated by how humans were viewed by the greater galactic community. Now, it seemed that fascination had taken a darker turn. Elias didn't answer immediately. He knew what she was asking. Humanity had fought wars, had endured disasters, had come out stronger every time. Compared to most species in the galaxy, they were resilient to an unnatural degree. But did that make them monsters? Did that make them something to be feared? "Depends on what they decide to do next," he said finally. Lillian hesitated before speaking again. "You don't think they'd act first, do you?" "I mean, if they believe we're a danger." "They might," Elias admitted. "And that's the problem. If they're scared enough, they could justify anything. Preemptive strikes, restrictions on human expansion, maybe even a full containment effort." The room grew colder at the thought. Humanity had fought for its place among the stars, built alliances, earned respect, but fear had a way of unraveling everything. Lillian tapped a few controls, bringing up files that had been flagged as particularly concerning. "You should see this. These are reports from Deep Space Scouts. We've been detecting unusual activity near neutral sectors. Unidentified ships, movement patterns that don't match any known trade routes. It's like they're watching from a distance, waiting for something." Elias felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. He had served in the military long enough to recognize the signs. The Galactic Council wasn't just gathering information, they were preparing for a decision. And if that decision went the wrong way, humanity might find itself fighting a war it never wanted. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, deep within a hidden intelligence facility, an operative known only as Arel stood in front of a massive data display. He was a member of the Galactic Council's Covert Research Division, tasked with uncovering the truth behind humanity's origins and their inexplicable resilience. The data he had gathered so far painted a disturbing picture. Multiple recorded instances of extreme endurance, he muttered to himself, scrolling through highlighted reports. Cases of humans surviving wounds that should be fatal. Psychological evaluations indicate an ability to adapt under extreme stress beyond normal thresholds. He paused, pulling up a classified medical file. And this, human muscle fibers regenerate faster than standard biological models predict. Bone density is higher than most spacefaring species. Nervous system response time, enhanced under life-threatening conditions. How? Arel frowned, rubbing his temples. They aren't the strongest, the fastest, or the most intelligent, and yet, they survive. They overcome. A soft chime signaled an incoming transmission. Burrell turned toward the holographic interface, his superior's face flickering into view. Report. Burrell hesitated, then spoke carefully. Sir, the data is troubling. Humans exhibit survival traits that suggest evolutionary pressures unlike anything we've documented. Their pain tolerance, their instinct for combat, their psychological resilience, these are the traits of apex predators, not cooperative spacefaring species. His superior's expression darkened. Then the rumors are true? Burrell exhaled slowly. We don't have definitive proof. But everything we've gathered suggests that humans are, at the very least, dangerously different. If they are Deathworlders, then it means we may have already made a mistake by allowing them to expand unchecked, the superior finished grimly. Continue your research. We need an answer soon. The transmission ended, leaving Burrell staring at the screen. He had spent years studying species across the galaxy, but humans were unlike anything he had ever encountered. The Council needed a decision. The galaxy needed a decision. But what if there was no right one? What if humanity wasn't just another species? What if there were something else entirely? The weight of that question settled in his mind, and for the first time in his career, Burrell felt something unexpected. Doubt. Far beyond the intelligence facility, beyond the quiet surveillance probes and the Council's whispered fears, a single human ship drifted through deep space. Its crew had no idea that the fate of their species was being debated in secret rooms across the galaxy. But soon, they would. And when they did, humanity would have to make a choice of its own. The void of space was silent, but beneath its stillness, the galaxy was shifting. Decisions were being made behind closed doors, whispers of fear turning into plans. And at the center of it all, humanity remained unaware, or at least, that was what the Galactic Council hoped. On the outskirts of a human-controlled system, Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the holographic display of the surrounding region. It looked peaceful, normal trade routes, scattered asteroid fields, the soft glow of distant stars. But Elias knew better. Hidden within the darkness, something was watching. Any new movement from the unidentified vessels? He asked, eyes fixed on the screen. The ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Jensen, shook his head. Still holding position, but they're not hiding their presence as well as they think. They're watching us, Captain. Studying us. Elias exhaled slowly, leaning against the console. They're scared. Should they be? Jensen asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. Elias gave him a look. That depends on how they handle their fear. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. The crew had started to sense it, the shift, the unease settling over the stars like a storm on the horizon. Something was coming. Meanwhile, on a distant Galactic Council outpost, intelligence operative Burrell sat in a dimly lit chamber, scrolling through newly compiled reports. Each one painted a picture of humanity that didn't quite fit the expectations of the Council. They were dangerous, yes, but not in the way the galaxy feared. Most species that gained power did so through conquest, overwhelming their enemies with brute strength or superior numbers. But humanity? Humanity thrived on survival, on endurance. They adapted, absorbed, and learned from every encounter. Wars that should have destroyed them only made them stronger. They were a species that didn't give up, not because they were the most powerful, but because they refused to lose. Burrell tapped a command on his interface, pulling up a detailed analysis of Earth. The planet itself was a testament to their resilience, natural disasters, shifting climates, predators that would have wiped out any other sapient species. And yet, humanity had conquered it. He switched to another file, this one focused on historical records. The wars. The struggles. The way humans had turned hardship into progress, destruction into innovation. It was unsettling. They didn't fight like the Council's military strategists expected. They didn't conquer for the sake of power. Instead, they fought like creatures who had spent their entire existence battling against extinction itself. A chime interrupted his thoughts. Another transmission from his superior. He hesitated before answering, already dreading what he might hear. "We need a recommendation, Orel." The voice on the other end was sharp, impatient. "Do we classify them as a threat?" Orel hesitated. "That depends on what you define as a threat." "Enough of the riddles," the superior snapped. "Are they Deathworlders or not?" Orel swallowed hard. "Yes. But not in the way we assumed. They aren't mindless killers. They don't seek war. But if war comes to them, they will fight until nothing is left standing." There was a long silence. Then, the superior's voice returned, colder than before. "Then we may have no choice but to act first." Orel's stomach twisted. "Sir, I don't think." The transmission cut off. The decision had been made. Back on the Resolute, Elias watched as another warning appeared on the screen. More unidentified ships moving into position. They were being surrounded, slowly but surely. "Sir, we're getting a transmission," the comms officer reported. Elias nodded. "Put it through." A holographic figure flickered to life, a Zelvari, one of the more warlike species in the Council. His reptilian features were sharp, his yellow eyes unblinking. "Captain Carter," the Zelvari said, voice calm but laced with something dangerous. "I am Commander Threx of the Galactic Council's Strategic Defense Division. Your movements have raised concerns." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Funny. We were about to say the same thing about you." Threx's expression didn't change. "You are being observed, Captain. The Council has questions about humanity's true nature. We suggest you cooperate." Elias crossed his arms. "And if we don't?" Threx leaned in slightly. "Then we may be forced to reconsider humanity's place in the galaxy." A quiet threat. The bridge crew stiffened, waiting for Elias' response. He held Threx's gaze. "You want to know what we are? Fine. Watch closely, Commander. But be careful what you look for." The transmission cut, leaving only silence behind. Outside the ship, the unseen watchers remained, lingering in the void. And in the heart of the Galactic Council, the debate over humanity's fate had already begun to spiral out of control. The tension inside the Resolute was almost suffocating. The crew remained at their stations, their eyes locked on the flickering holographic display showing the slow but deliberate movement of the Galactic Council ships. They weren't attacking, not yet, but they were closing in, boxing them into a position that left little room for escape. Elias Carter stood motionless, his jaw tight as he processed the Zelvari commander's veiled threat. This was no simple observation mission. The Council wasn't just watching anymore. They were preparing for something bigger. Something dangerous. "Sir," Lieutenant Jensen spoke, his voice lower than usual. "We just picked up encrypted chatter between those ships. They're coordinating their positions. Whatever decision they've made, they aren't waiting much longer." Elias exhaled sharply. "They think they're being careful. But they don't realize they're pushing us into a corner." The bridge fell silent. Humanity had never responded well to being trapped. And if the Council was planning to act first, they had no idea what kind of fire they were about to ignite. Meanwhile, deep within the Galactic Council's central station, Orel paced the length of his dimly lit office. The classified reports he had spent weeks compiling were scattered across his desk, each one adding another piece to the puzzle, one the Council seemed determined to ignore. He had warned them. He had explained that humanity wasn't an enemy, that their resilience didn't make them a threat unless forced into war. But fear was louder than reason, and the whispers of preemptive action had turned into full-scale preparations. A secure transmission flashed onto his console. He hesitated, knowing exactly what it would say before he even opened it. "Council Directive, Containment Measures Authorized. Proceed with caution." Orel clenched his fists. Containment. A polite way of saying they were about to place an entire species under control before they could become a bigger problem. The only issue? Humanity didn't react well to being controlled. Orel switched channels, connecting to his personal encrypted line. Seconds later, a shadowed figure appeared on the display, one of his contacts within the Council's covert intelligence network. "They're really doing this?" the voice asked, tinged with disbelief. "It's already in motion," Orel confirmed, his voice tense. "If they go through with this, it won't be a containment operation. It'll be a war. And I don't think they understand what they're up against." "You think the humans will fight back?" Orel exhaled. "Not just fight back. They'll adapt. They'll find a way to turn this against us. And once they do, nothing will stop them." Back on the Resolute, alarms flared to life, cutting through the quiet tension like a blade. The ships surrounding them had activated their weapon systems, not firing yet, but close. Too close. Elias' mind raced. They wanted to force humanity's hand, to push them into making the first aggressive move. A justification. A reason to launch a full-scale intervention. "Hold position," he ordered, his voice steady. "Don't give them what they want." Jensen frowned. "Sir, with all due respect, if we wait too long, they might take that as a sign of weakness." Elias didn't flinch. "They don't understand us. Not yet. But they're about to." A moment later, a new transmission came through. This time, it wasn't from Commander Threx. It was from the Galactic Council itself. The message was clear. "Surrender, or be dealt with." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances. There was no real choice here. Humanity had been backed into a corner, their survival questioned, their existence seen as a threat. Elias took a deep breath. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them." He paused, his voice darkening. "Tell them it started." Far across the galaxy, hidden within human-controlled space, high-ranking officials and military leaders would receive that message. And when they did, they would know what it meant. The Council had made its decision. Now, it was humanity's turn. The silence on the Resolute's bridge was broken only by the steady hum of the ship's systems and the occasional beep of incoming data. Every crew member had their eyes locked on the display, watching as the Council's fleet inched closer, their weapons primed but still holding fire. They wanted surrender. They wanted compliance. Elias Carter stood at the center, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The message had been sent. Earth knew. And if there was one thing he understood about humanity, it was that they didn't react well to ultimatums. A sudden alert flashed on the screen, sharp and urgent. Lieutenant Jensen's fingers flew across his console, eyes widening as he scanned the incoming data. "Sir, we just picked up another fleet entering the system. Not ours. And not the Council's either." Elias turned to him sharply. "Who is it?" Jensen hesitated, adjusting the scanner's parameters. "I don't know, sir. No known transponder codes. But, they're moving fast. And they're heavily armed." The tension in the room tightened like a vice. A third party. One no one had accounted for. Before Elias could issue another command, a second alarm blared, this one more urgent. "Captain," the comms officer called out, voice strained. "We're being hailed. But not by the Council." Elias exchanged a glance with Jensen, then nodded. "Put it through." The main view screen flickered, and a new figure appeared, a creature that didn't match any of the known Galactic Council races. Its elongated features and dark, gleaming eyes gave nothing away, but its voice was smooth, deliberate. "Captain Carter," the being said, its tone eerily calm. "Your species has made quite an impression." Elias kept his stance firm. "And who, exactly, are you?" The alien's expression didn't change. "A spectator. One who has been watching humanity for far longer than the Council has." A cold chill ran through the bridge. Watching? What did that mean? Elias didn't let the unease show on his face. "And what do you want?" The being tilted its head slightly. "To offer you a choice. The Council has already decided what to do with your kind. Their fear blinds them. But fear is useful. It creates opportunities." Elias narrowed his eyes. Opportunities for what? The alien leaned forward. For a shift in power. The words sent a ripple through the bridge. A shift in power. That meant only one thing: whoever these beings were, they weren't just here to observe. They had their own agenda. Jensen glanced at Elias, voice barely above a whisper. Sir, this could be a trap. Elias knew that. He also knew that every move the Council had made so far had led to this moment. Humanity was being forced into a corner, treated as a threat before they had even made a move. And now, an unknown force was stepping in, offering something dangerous, an alliance, or perhaps something worse. Before he could respond, the Resolute's sensors flared again. The unknown fleet had just changed course, heading straight for the Council ships. Then, without warning, the first shots were fired. The battle had begun. The moment the first shot was fired, chaos erupted in the void. The Council's fleet scrambled, their carefully planned formation breaking apart as the unknown ships surged forward with terrifying speed. Plasma fire streaked across the darkness, explosions blooming like distant stars. The Resolute remained still, caught between two warring forces, their crew frozen as they watched the battle unfold. Elias Carter stood firm, his mind racing. This wasn't just a battle, it was a message. Someone had decided that the balance of power in the galaxy was about to change, and humanity had become the catalyst. Captain, incoming transmission. Jensen shouted over the alarms. From who? Elias demanded. Jensen hesitated. Both sides. The Council is ordering us to stand down and prepare for immediate detention, but the others, he swallowed. They're offering us a chance to fight. Elias clenched his fists. Every instinct told him that siding with the unknown fleet was dangerous. But surrendering to the Council wasn't an option. The alien figure appeared on the view screen once more, calm even as war raged behind it. Decide quickly, Captain. Your species is at a crossroads. Elias took a slow breath. And if we refuse? The alien's eyes gleamed. Then you will be left to the mercy of those who fear you. Another explosion rocked the void. The Council's flagship had taken a direct hit, its shields flickering. But instead of retreating, it turned its weapons toward the Resolute. Jensen's voice was sharp with panic. Sir! They're targeting us. Elias didn't hesitate. Shields up! All hands, battle stations. The crew snapped into action, their training overriding fear. The Resolute roared to life, engines flaring as it moved into position. The first volley from the Council ship slammed against their shields, sending a tremor through the deck. Elias gripped the console, his voice steady. Return fire. A burst of energy shot from the Resolute's cannons, striking the Council's lead vessel. The unexpected retaliation sent shockwaves through the battlefield. Humanity had made its choice. The alien fleet capitalized on the moment, launching a ruthless assault on the Council's forces. Their ships moved with unnatural precision, weaving between enemy fire like specters. It was clear they had been waiting for this war to start. Jensen looked at Elias, his face pale. Sir, if we do this, if we fight, there's no going back. Elias met his gaze, eyes hardened with resolve. We were never going back. The battle raged on, but something was wrong. The unknown fleet was winning, too easily. Council ships were falling one after another, their defenses crumbling. Elias had expected resistance, a prolonged fight, but this was annihilation. Then the realization hit him. The Council had never stood a chance. The alien leader's voice crackled through the comms. You see now, Captain? We were never here to fight alongside you. We were here to replace them. Elias felt his stomach drop. Humanity had been so focused on proving themselves, on surviving, that they hadn't stopped to question what they were stepping into. The true war hadn't even begun. The battlefield was unrecognizable now. Wreckage from shattered Council ships drifted through the void, silent and lifeless. The unknown fleet moved through the debris with eerie precision, their ships untouched, their forces barely slowed. It wasn't a battle, it had been a calculated extermination. Elias Carter stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his mind reeling from the alien commander's last words. "We were never here to fight alongside you. We were here to replace them." The truth settled in his chest like a weight. The Galactic Council had been flawed, fearful, desperate to control what they didn't understand. But whatever force had just dismantled them was far worse. The comms crackled again, the alien leader's voice unnervingly calm. "You have played your role well, Captain. Humanity was the perfect spark to ignite this war. The Council's power was built on weakness. That weakness is gone now." Elias tightened his fists. "And what happens next? Do we trade one ruling power for another?" A brief pause. Then, the alien spoke again. "That depends on you." The words sent a chill through the crew. Humanity had wanted recognition, a place in the galactic order. But now, they weren't just a species proving themselves, they were witnesses to something larger. And in the aftermath of the Council's fall, they stood alone in a galaxy where power shifted like sand in a storm. Lieutenant Jensen leaned in, his voice low. "Sir, we need to get out of here. Before they decide we're not useful anymore." Elias nodded slowly. "Prepare a jump to human space." Quietly. Jensen got to work, relaying silent orders across the ship. Meanwhile, the alien leader continued speaking. "Do not misunderstand, Captain. Your kind has proven itself resilient. You have earned a place in what comes next." Elias exhaled sharply. "And if we don't want a place in whatever you're planning?" The alien's expression didn't change. "Then you will simply be in the way." The comms cut out. The unknown fleet was already shifting, regrouping, their ships vanishing into the void with unsettling efficiency. They weren't here to occupy, they had done what they came to do. Now, they were moving on to whatever came next. Jensen turned back to Elias, tension thick in his voice. "We're ready to jump." Elias glanced at the screen one last time, at the remnants of what had once been the ruling power of the galaxy. The Council had feared humanity because they saw them as a threat to stability. But they had never considered that something else, something far worse, had been waiting for an opportunity to take their place. "Jump," Elias ordered. The Resolute's engines flared, and in an instant, they were gone. The stars reformed around them as they exited FTL, now safely in human-controlled space. The silence on the bridge was deafening. No one spoke, no one moved. The weight of what they had just witnessed, what they had unwittingly been a part of, pressed down on all of them. Jensen broke the silence first. "Sir, what do we tell command?" Elias stared at the vast emptiness of space before them, his mind already racing with possibilities. The truth was dangerous. If humanity knew they had helped bring down the Galactic Council, some would call it a victory. Others would see it for what it really was, a shift in power they hadn't controlled, a war they had helped start but couldn't stop. And worst of all, an enemy they still didn't understand. Elias sighed, rubbing his temple. "We tell them what happened. That the Council is gone. That something else is coming. And that we need to be ready." Jensen nodded, but his expression remained uneasy. "Do you think they'll believe us?" Elias exhaled. "They won't have a choice." As the crew of the Resolute processed what had happened, across the galaxy, the unknown fleet was already moving. Their next steps were unknown. Their plans, a mystery. But one thing was clear, humanity had changed the course of history. And now, they had to survive what came next. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, cold and vast, filled with possibilities both terrifying and unknown. Elias Carter stood firm, knowing one thing for certain. The real war hadn't even begun.